When I first started mixing records, I couldn't figure out how they had these massive mixes and huge arrangements with multiple guitars and huge stacks of vocalists going on. But for some reason, the vocals always stayed front and center, and you could always hear everything the vocalist was doing. How the hell did they do that? I kept wondering. And 23 years later, I think I figured it out. So I want to share it with you. I want to show you guys exactly how to keep your vocals front and center, cutting through any mix, no matter how many instruments you have, no matter how dense or sparse the mix is. Let's make those vocals sit. In today's mix series, Radium Records, let's go. The technique I'm about to show you is something that I've actually come to a conclusion with after doing mixing and mastering for 23 years, right? I always found this problem where if you start to EQ and you start to carve out zones and carve out areas to make room for vocals, all of a sudden you're doing a ton of automation in your session. It's taking forever and you're still not really getting the results you wanted, which is keeping that vocal right there, front and center and important. So I'm going to show you exactly what I do to make sure that vocal always cuts through, even when the mix gets really busy. When guitars come in, banjos come in, synths come in, pianos come in, whatever, anything that's going to take up that mid-range, what do we do? So I'm going to show you right now on the screen. Check this out. This is a song that's really just fun. It's got a lot of kind of, I'd almost call it indie folk, right? And it has like electric guitar and all that stuff. So there's a little rock in there as well. But I'm gonna play you the zone and like kind of the part where the drums come in and it starts to get a little busier. And then I'm gonna play you the part where it really starts going and you could lose the vocal very easily. And I'm gonna show you how I get around not losing the vocal. Here we go.
Let me tell you now about my no good rotten spouse. He goes out every night and leaves me in this wretched house. We've been apart right from the start, he's never put me first. These things...
Okay, so that's a part where the drums are starting to come in and it's starting to get a little congested. But let's take it to more of the chorus where everything comes in, the drums start really going, and you got electric guitars and you got other things in the mid-range that you want to get out of the center and you want to focus on that vocal so you don't get it lost.
Whoa, I can't take it anymore. I must be being punished, but for what I'm not quite sure. Everybody else has it good from what I see. Why not me?
Okay, so that could easily get lost. That's a very congested zone. You got a snare drum rolling. Snare drums are typically going to be in that mid-range area. They're going to be hitting in that 1K, that 4K. You know, it's got that top. It's got the underneath the snares, the actual wires, which are up in the top, which can take away from the top end of the vocal. So how do we deal with this? Do we just go in and carve it? Do we get out our isotope and use the AI and say, hey, clear that zone for me? No, because then all of a sudden you're automating all these different zones. Oh, it's going to have to sound different here. Now everything sounds really thin in the beginning, but it doesn't sound thin at the end. And then it sounds too thick in certain areas. And we're losing the vocal here, but we're not losing it here. I don't want to deal with any of that. I want to do it the most musical way possible. So what do? I typically have my buses set up. So I have all my vocals, say these are my vocal tracks. I bus them all to a vocal mix bus, which then goes to an all vocals bus where my reverbs and my delays and my sends and stuff end up as well. Same thing with drums, same thing with instruments. Okay, so let's go up to those buses and let's check out what's going on. So here's the all vocal bus. It's got a de-esser on it. Let's find the vocal mix bus. The vocal mix bus is going to be right here. And this has some EQ, some compression, and it has this key bus here, right? And the key bus is sending out a signal, which is a duplicate of the actual vocal mix bus. Why is that there? Because I want to send a signal to a key input of a multiband compressor, of a Sooth 2, of anything that's going to duck anything else that's going to get in the way of the vocals in the mid-range. So I'm sending, the first thing I'm doing is sending from the vocal mix bus, which all the vocals are going to, sending a duplicate. Now that bus needs to be killed. So when you find the actual return, you want to mute it, take it out. You don't want it hitting your stereo bus, right? We're just using that as a key input. So now let's go to our drums bus because that's where all of our drums are ending up. So here's our all drums bus. Let's play that heavy part again, and we'll put the drums in and out, and you can really hear what's going on and why these drums are starting to really congest this area. So I'm going to go up to this all drums bus, and I'm just going to mute the drums, and you're going to hear how much the vocals still stand out, and I'll bring the drums in and out.
Whoa, I can't take it anymore. I must be being punished, but for what I'm not quite sure. Everybody else has it good from what I see. Why not me?
So how do I get rid of that idea? Do I go out and just carve a bunch out of the middle and get rid of all the frequencies that I love in the drums? No. What I do is I turn on a Soothe 2, or I turn on any other sort of multiband compressor or dynamic EQ, and I use the key input, right? So I have the Vox mix bus right here coming into this, and I am finding the area of the frequencies that only the vocals are really going to sit, and that I want to duck everything else. So on this EQ, we're looking at about 300 hertz to about 4.5 kilohertz, okay? And we're really focusing on the 1.5, so 1500 hertz, just being in the middle, that vocal area. And then I have this key input, and on Soothe, you can hit this sidechain. You can just turn the sidechain on. Same thing with a lot of different multiband compressors, dynamic EQs, etc. So let's see what that does, and just watch this as it ducks these areas where the vocals are coming in.
Whoa, I can't take it anymore. I must be being punished, but for what I'm not quite sure. Everybody else has it good from what I see.
So this is a very, very effective approach to making room for the vocals, but not killing the drums, just kind of ducking them in certain frequencies when the vocals are hitting those certain frequencies. It's a very dynamic process. It leaves a lot of dynamics to the music, and you're not getting rid of the frequencies when the vocals aren't there. So the drums still sound live, they still sound full. You can still get that sparkle and that snare, the underneath snare, the brilliance, all that stuff. Now, on the same note, you can use whatever plugin you want to do this. It doesn't have to be Soothe 2. It could be Wave C6. It could be Trackspacer, right? Which I've done a plugin of the week on, and I'll leave a little link to that video right here in the description so you can check out that plugin, and it's much more affordable as well. So let's see what we did on the instrument bus, okay? So here's the instrument bus on all instruments. Let's go to the instrument mix bus, and let's find out what we did to duck that. So on here, we have the same thing. The vocal mix is coming into the key. You have Soothe 2, all right? So, and you can see the frequencies are a little different because on the instruments, I wanted to make sure that I'm ducking some of the body of the vocal. I don't want the instruments to take up that, oh, you know, that low note, that low register. So let's just look at what it's doing here.
Whoa, I can't take it anymore. I must be being punished, but for what I'm not quite sure. Everybody else has it good from what I see. Why not me?
Now what this is telling the instruments and telling the drums to do is get out of the way of the fundamental frequencies and the brilliance and the vocal. Just those frequencies of the vocal that we really want to cut through in the mix. And it's an incredibly powerful way to treat this problem. And the last thing I'm going to show you, so don't leave, because I know a lot of you guys are like, oh, got it, done, bam, right? I'm going to show you how it works with Trackspacer and how it works with other just sections. Like, for example, I had this low guitar that was really in the way during the chorus. So I threw the Trackspacer on here, right? And the Trackspacer is a little different, but not really. It's sort of the similar process. So I have the key bus here, which is the input that it's seen as a sidechain. And then on here, this is your amount. You have a low cut and a high cut, so you can really focus in on the mid range. And then there's some other stuff under the hood here where you can quicken up the attack. You can go left, right, or you can go mid side. So you can just treat the middle, just treat the sides, etc. So now what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to have the vocals ducking in this range of the low guitar. So when the vocals hit, it's saying low guitar, get out of the way of these frequencies that the vocals are in. So let's check that out.
Whoa, I can't take it anymore. I must be being punished, but for what I'm not quite sure. Everybody else has it good from what I see. Why not me?
Now, my final note on this is that everything you're hearing right now so far is very subtle. But as you add just little tiny things, and you take away tiny things in your mix, that's how you get a big impactful mix. That's how you get width. It's how you get depth. It's how you get clarity. It's how you get punch. It's how you get fullness. That's how modern records are made now, right? We have to use the tools that we have at our disposal for modern records. And these are just some of them, right? Trackspacer, Soothe 2, multiband compressors. FabFilter has great one, right? With the MB, their multiband. Also, you could even use Pro Q3, which is their EQ, and you can do mid-side processing and ducking with the key input, all that stuff. Make room for the vocals. That is the key to a great recording, to a great mix, to a great master. Now, if you guys like this video, of course, smash the like button, give us a comment, ask a question, whatever you want. Share it with a friend. That's all we ask. And there's some links in the description here to help you go further with your music, with your mixing, with your mastering, and even to hire us here at Radium to work on your next record. Hope this helped.